I remember going to a store in Sharon, Ontario. That's north of Newmarket. And I had a friend, and she happened to be a girl who was white, and we were in the store together, convenience store, and we're both trying to buy candy. I'm in my section, and she's like looking at some chips or whatever. When we get out of the store, she pulls all this stuff out of her pocket that she had stolen, and I was like, "Dude, you're not supposed to steal." And she's like, "Yeah, but they never look at me." And I realized, like, oh my goodness, this is weird. I remember not being seated at a restaurant in Nova Scotia. Me and my brother and all these other people come in and they're seated. And I remember, sorry, we were seated. The waiter didn't come over to us to ask us if we want something to eat. And all these other people are like ordering. My brother and I there were like waving and smiling and eye contact, and just wouldn't serve us. I remember being 17 and when I first started driving. And I don't know if you were like this, but when I first started driving, I was like hands at 10 and 2, check in the mirrors every 30. I would stop at a red light and I would keep like a full car length between me and the car in front of me. I was like following all the rules. I'm 17 driving in Richmond Hill, Ontario. As I'm driving, I see the flashing lights of a cop car. I'm like, oh no, what did I do? Did I fail to signal? Did I not come to a complete stop? I pull over. The cop comes over. I said, officer, what did I do? And he says, I just want to see if you stole the car. Let me see the ownership and everything. And I was like, what? And he told me, I want to see if you stole the car. And so I give him my stuff and I'm sitting there in the car. And again, that feeling, right? Like sick to my stomach, my heart is pounding. And it's this feeling of like knowing you don't belong and you're not wanted. And like people think you belong in jail, you know? And I remember sitting there and it was really hard. And it's funny because even till today, when I am in a store with my kids and I'm walking out of the store, you know the checkpoints when you exit a store and there's like the checkpoint. I don't steal. I never steal. I can't. I can't even like steal movies on the internet or like I don't steal. I just don't do it. But when I'm walking out of a checkpoint, my heart still races a little bit. I still get anxious. If I walk in a store and I got my phone in my hand, maybe everybody does this. So maybe this is not just me. If I have my phone in my hand as I walk in the store, I'm like, oh, Anthony, keep your phone in your hand the whole time you're in the store. Do not put your hand in your pocket, or they're gonna think maybe I'm not the only one. Maybe that's a common thing. Can you let me know? Do you do that too? That might be common, but I still have these ghosts of living in a world that looks at me like I'm a criminal, that looks at me like I'm up to something. And it's like this tension, it's like this anxiety, it's like this like waiting to exhale thing, right? And for me, this is the intersection of mental health and racism, and the impact that racism has on the mental health of BIPOC people, and the intersection of mental health and racism is it's kind of where I live, and it's kind of where I love to explore. And for me, one of the things that made these experiences worse, because I'm seeing in the chat, and Rodney just shared, I always carry my receipt. A few people said I've never done that. Amanda said I do that as a Black woman. A lot of people were saying, no, don't do that. Don't do that. I don't do that. One person said I did that. Um, One of the things that has made these experiences I've had, I remember the Nova Scotia thing, like not being seated, and we had to leave. Um, it was awful. But one of the things that made these experiences worse, and I really want you to hear this, when I would share these experiences, sometimes with friends, sometimes with family members, when I share these experiences, so often I would be denied. I'd be questioned. I'd be, you sure? are you sure? Like the cop pulled me over and said, I want to see if you stole the car. I hadn't done anything illegal. Pulled me, I want to see if you stole the car. And I told that story, and I remember people doubting me. Are you sure? Well, how do you know that it was racial that he pulled you over? Maybe he would have pulled over anyone. Maybe if you were a middle-aged white woman, he still would have pulled you over to see if you stole the car. I mean, that's their job, right? I mean, were you driving weird? Did you? And that right there, that denial, that like questioning, that assuming that you're probably in the wrong, that right there made things so much worse, because we know from mental health and psychologists, we know that when the brain goes through something troubling, it has to process it. And the way the brain processes trauma is by turning it over again and again. And speaking, of course, is so healthy, right? Because as you talk things out, talk therapy can be very helpful. It's not the only therapy that's helpful, but it can be very helpful. And sometimes just talking to a loved one and sharing a difficult situation you had, if that is met with keyword at the intersection of mental health and racial equity, keyword is empathy. If that is met with empathy. So if I share that story with you of getting pulled over and like they want to see if I stole the car, if that's met with, oh, that's awful. I'm so sorry that happened. And then you just hold space for me to feel it and process it, then I can process it, right? That's empathy. Put yourself in my shoes. But when so let me just go through. Bridget, thank you. Thank you for saying, I'm sorry you experienced that and that lack of validation. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, Pamela said I experienced more of the microaggressions. We're going to get there, Pamela. We're going to get there. But let me share with you. This is right here on the intersection of mental health and anti-racism. Whether someone is sharing with you a story of a racist experience they encountered, or if someone is sharing with you, what it's like to live with mental illness, or someone's sharing with you they're part of the LGBTQ plus community and that they're being discriminated against, or if you've got a teenager sharing with you how difficult it is, doing online school and not being able to go to prom this year. If someone is sharing a tough time, listen with empathy. Parents, this is such a big deal for your kids. Okay. Co-workers, this is such a big deal with each other. Managers, leaders, this is such a big deal with your direct reports. Listening with empathy.